Let's talk about identity. This might feel like a very random thing for me to be discussing as somebody who mostly talks about being a Pinterest virtual assistant. But I've personally been going through some massive identity shifts, and it got me thinking about the identity shifts that you have to actually go through in order to make the decision on becoming a Pinterest manager or becoming a Pinterest virtual assistant. I'm currently 26 weeks pregnant, and something that I've been having to make this like shift and this pivot in my mind is that for the last 8 years, I have been running a Pinterest management business, and that has been my day to day. That has been what I think about. That has been really kind of like where my priorities lie outside of my family, outside of my husband, outside of our, family unit. And as I'm progressing in this pregnancy, I'm starting to have to shift some identity and ultimately some beliefs. And it got me thinking about how you, sitting on the other side, may want to become a Pinterest manager, but your current identity and your current beliefs are not supporting that, which is causing some friction and it's causing potentially some anxiety on your end. And like I said, this is something that I'm currently going through right now. I'm going through potentially some friction. We started talking about, Bree and I, my business partner, we started talking about what is it going to look like for me to go on maternity leave. And when I started thinking through this, it caused some massive friction and almost like I have had to shift my identity from someone who is essentially, someone who is responsible for herself, her dog, and making sure that things in our little family unit are going well. Like, that's kind of been my identity, right? I haven't been responsible for another human being. Like, my husband can take care of himself. I'm not like, while we care for each other, it's not like I am quote unquote responsible for him on in that aspect. And so thinking this through and thinking about how my identity had to shift, and we're talking about what does maternity leave look like, what do I, and like here's the thing, I'm in a different situation where I get to really decide what maternity leave looks like, and I'm so thankful for that. I also know what feels good to my nervous system in the sense of being away from the business and just saying, hey, see y'all in 8 weeks. That doesn't feel good to me because I know that I'm going to come back and there's going to be things that are going to essentially then feel like fires. And so I've been working through what does this look like? And it's what's really interesting. I'm going to be a little vulnerable with y'all. What's really interesting was that my gut reaction when we started talking through all of this was, I mean, I'm just going to still work. I'm going to still look at, my email. I'm still going to do things. I just don't like want to be on client calls. And then I had to really ask myself, is that like your current identity? Is that your current beliefs? That are speaking into that are making you believe that? Or are you like, because are you essentially afraid of what's on the other side? And I realized that it was my current identity, and I was having a really hard time making that pivot. And I was having a really hard time figuring out, like, who do I need to become, or who do I need to like think about in order to support this next phase of life? And so the point of this is I know that there's so many of you who want something different. You want to be able to leave your 9 to 6. You want to be able to make additional money, whatever that may look like, to pay, for groceries, to pay for a family vacation. And your current identity is keeping you stuck. It's keeping you in a place that's telling you, okay, but like we're comfortable right here because we know what we know, right? I'm gonna say that one more time. We're comfortable right here because we know what we know. And that was massive for me. I was comfortable in the spot of I know what I know, which is that I wake up every day, I get ready, I take my dog on a walk, I eat food, and I start working. That is what I know. It's really uncomfortable to think about, okay, but what is my life going to look like when our son is here? That's uncomfortable because it's unknown. And so then not only is it unknown, but it's a whole new identity, right? I'm no longer just Emily who takes care of our dog and who works. I'm now Emily who takes care of our dog, takes care of our son, and works. And that is that has been something that I have been in my mind trying to ease into. And so I understand that your current identity is someone who goes into a nine to six. You know what to expect. You might not enjoy it. It might honestly be something that you're like, I really would love to never have to be here again, but you're comfortable. And that's the other side of having to make identity switches and having to really step into this other part is like 9 times out of 10, people don't do it because it's uncomfortable. I just lost my microphone. 9 times out of 10, people don't do it because it's uncomfortable. And when something's uncomfortable, it has to literally get to the point where it is so painfully uncomfortable that you don't have a choice but to move to the other side. You don't have a choice but to believe something new. You don't have a choice but to assume a new identity and a new belief. And so I get it where you're sitting. I understand. You're correct. I'm not working in a 9 to 6 right now. But I was working in a 9 to 6, and it got to the point where I was like, this is not a future that I want, so I need to shift. And so how can we actually do this? How can we actually start to shift our identity and our beliefs? Because here's the thing, we can talk about this all day long. Okay, I get it. Like, I understand that where I am and where I want to go, there's beliefs that I have to believe along the way in order to make this happen. But what does that bridge actually look like? So I'm going to tell you what has been helping me as I'm currently in a phase of transforming my identity and my beliefs. So the first thing is just acknowledging where you are. It's acknowledging that these are the circumstances that you're in right now. For me, the circumstances that I'm in right now is that I do love working. I do. It is something that I have always really enjoyed. I love working. The circumstances are also that I am 26 weeks pregnant, and we are 13 weeks away from meeting our son. That's another circumstance. And the other circumstance is that I need to actually reshape what my day-to-day looks like once our son is here. That is the reality of my circumstances right now. So how can I bridge the gap to get into a future or to get into a belief that I can handle what's on the other side? Well, for me personally, it's writing down where I am and then writing down what a perfect ideal world looks like on the other side. And this is like a no judgment zone. This is just literally what would make for the perfect scenario on the other side. And then it's taking baby steps. I think that's the part that we miss so much, is taking these small baby steps. I started doing this when it came to like sales activities. I know, hard pivot, right? But I started doing this when it came to sales activities because I was sitting there and I was like, okay, I know that I want to hit, this was when I was like, I want to hit our first 10K month. And so in order to do so, I need to be doing sales activities every single day. Okay, well, I'm going to make this really, really specific and really easy for me. I'm going to submit 10 proposals every single day, and we're going to see what happens. And I'm just going to keep doing this. That small action built confidence. And you know what that confidence did? I was doing something every single day that nobody else knew if I was doing it or not. I knew. And so when I was keeping that promise to myself, it was building confidence. And then when people started wanting to book sales calls, and I was getting on sales calls with people and they were signing and we were getting closer and closer to that 10K, my identity started to shift. Okay, so how do we do this right now? You're working in a 9 to 6. You want to become a Pinterest manager. You want to leave that 9 to 6. Write down your current circumstances. Okay, write that down. You have that list. You want to get to the other side. So what is your ideal scenario? And your ideal scenario is potentially replacing your 9 to 6 income. Your ideal scenario is being able to go on a summer family vacation and not worry about expenses. Whatever that ideal scenario is, I want you to almost have like 2 columns on this piece of paper: current and ideal. And then you just start bridging the gap. So for some of you, bridging the gap may be jumping on our free training. Okay, that is a small thing. Nobody knows if I'm going to do this or not but me. But I'm going to make the promise to myself to jump on this training, to learn, and I'm going to see what's potentially out there. And then I'm going to start building my confidence, right? Another small gap, maybe, and I do say this in the most loving way, but a small gap may be I'm going to actually join the Pinterest VA school because I know that they have a roadmap that I can follow. Okay, I've joined the Pinterest VA school. Now I'm going to actually spend 30 minutes every day watching the material and taking action. And you know what? Nobody's going to know if I'm doing this but me. I promise you, you do that for 1 week, you do that for 2 weeks, you do that for 3 weeks, you'll be an unrecognizable person. Your identity will have completely shifted simply because you are keeping promises to yourself. This is something that you're going to come up against regardless of the phase of business or life or career that you're in. When I decided that I wanted to leave my corporate job and start building my own business, I had to shift my identity from being somebody who was a employee to being somebody who employed other people, somebody who was self-employed. That was a massive identity shift. I was like, there was no roadmap. I was literally figuring this out as I go. When I wanted to scale the business, I knew that I had to hire people. That was terrifying. My identity went from being responsible for myself to then going, okay, I am now responsible for other people's livelihood. What do I need to do every day to build confidence in myself so that that can happen? Right now, I'm in a completely different phase of business where I have a team who's there and who's supporting. I have an amazing business partner, and I'm still going through identity shifts. I'm still having to figure out what is maternity leave going to look like. And every single day, I'm doing something small that's reassuring my brain and telling myself, this is safe. You can do this. And you know what? I feel so much better this week than I did a week ago or 2 weeks ago because it was just kind of looming and I didn't know where to start. I made a list. This is where I am. This is where I want to be. What is one small thing I can do every day to bridge that gap? I hope that this is making sense. I hope that it's helping you to realize that you're not alone when it comes to being afraid to make big changes in our lives. I think about this a lot. I've been thinking about this a lot, especially, I'm like I said, I'm 26 weeks pregnant. We did IVF in order to get pregnant, and I can tell you, going through those years of infertility and going through the process of fertility treatments and IVF, there were so many different identity shifts and so many different things that I had to just kind of leave. And I was shifting very fast, and I was shifting, I don't want to say beliefs, but I was shifting mindsets really fast, and I was shifting like identities, and I was shifting like my belief and my view of at least what I saw from the outside was that, it's so easy to get pregnant. And then I found myself 3 years into trying to conceive, failed IUIs, chemical pregnancy, and sitting there going, wow, now my reality is that I'm doing IVF. That was a massive identity shift. I went from somebody who, like, I literally was just like, oh, we're just the friends trying to have a baby, to then all of a sudden, well, now we're the friends going through IVF. And I'm not saying all these little things have to, like, quote unquote, define your full identity, but they do in a sense. And the faster we can kind of come to terms with what do we need to shift our mindset. And I don't like saying shift our beliefs because I do believe that at the end of the day, like, your core beliefs are your core beliefs. But I do believe that we do have to kind of shift our identity in the positive to be able to allow our mind to realize that there's more out there for us. I had to shift my mindset from being somebody who was terrified of needles, terrified of the IVF process, to someone who was like, I can do this. I can do this. I'm capable of this, and I'm worthy of what's on the other side. Those were things that I had to personally make shifts for in order to be able to go through that process. So I want you to ask yourself, what do you need to do today to be able to leave your 9 to 6 by this summer? And that saying that might feel really heavy to you. Saying that might be like, whoo, that's a tight timeline. I get it. But sometimes we need a little bit of pressure. And sometimes we need somebody else saying, okay, but what are you actually going to do today? Because you can listen all day long. You can listen to these videos. You can read everything. But what are you actually going to do today? And once again, it can be something small. It can literally be, I'm going to create these lists. Or it can also be, I'm going to watch this free training because it's the lowest barrier to entry. Or it can be, I'm going to actually join the Pinterest VA school because I've been putting it off for so long. I'm actually going to do it. And then I'm going to dive into the material and start taking action. I would actually love to know in the comments what you're going to do today to bring yourself closer to the identity of who you want to be by this summer. Let me know in the comments, and then that way I can